Hey,
Hello.
we're back with another coaching corner. Maybe someday we'll have
Woohoo.
like a little intro and a little.
Oh, yeah. Do we know
But
anybody that like composes music or anything?
I mean, one of my teenagers has composed a song before, so
Ooh, so we could be like the Glennon Doyle podcast, right?
I
We can
don't know.
do
I've
hard
never
things.
listened to
Oh,
it.
her daughter sings, I think plays guitar and sings the little intro song.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, I
Yeah.
could ask. That their song that they composed was a rap song, so
Oh, I mean, well,
it might fit in with. I don't know. I'd have to ask.
we can roll with it.
Right? Roll with the punches. Okay, so we decided that today's topic is awareness,
Awareness.
which you think would actually be like every month is awareness month for something. So like you think that awareness would be more of a thing that we understand, that we grasp the concept of, that comes around. But that's not necessarily the case.
Yeah.
Um I was thinking about it earlier, and like how awareness can like really come in stages. Like from no awareness to being like fully aware and like actively making changes. There's multiple steps, and I had an analogy, but I don't remember what it is.
Okay. So when it comes to like the clients that you work with, why do you think awareness is important? And like, what does awareness even mean to you?
So awareness comes into effect in a couple different ways. So there's the past awareness of like where the ideas and thoughts and habits and whatnot that we have, like where they come from, where we might have picked them up from. But the one that I actually find is the biggest struggle is the awareness of what our wants and needs are now. I find that people struggle with that a lot more. And it's tied to the past because it was like the thing for our parents' generation to invalidate us at every turn they possibly could. It was almost like they were in a race to like collect invalidation points or something. Be like, no, you don't feel this way. No, this isn't what you want. No, you don't need this. This isn't good for you. And so when you hear that message over and over and over again, and then I come along and I'm like, so what do you want? What do you need? What would make you feel better? What would make things feel more secure? And um uh I don't know. And
I,
that's
I
usually how
don't
it
have
goes.
wants and needs. What are you talking about?
Right. Right. Like I'm not allowed to have wants and needs. It's just not, or if I am, I have to do enough to earn them. I have to earn my wants and needs, which
I
is
don't
the
know
other thing
anything
that I,
about that.
no, not at all. Not at all. So that's what I find, like
Okay.
having the awareness of the past, but also knowing that it's a thing that you need to focus on in order to move forward.
Okay.
Um, for the ADHD side of it, I was thinking about how like the awareness evolves because like when I was a kid, I got told all the time that I was lazy and I never bothered to finish anything, and that was like somehow my fault and looked down upon. But now I have the awareness that it's an ADHD trait. So, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that's like, honestly think awareness is the most important thing for people with ADHD. Like to have the awareness of what are all of the common and some of the more uncommon symptoms of ADHD. So that way people understand, like, oh, my brain is wired differently. There's literally nothing I could do to make this. I'm not broken. I didn't make this happen. I didn't choose this. Like, this comes along with being neurodivergent.
Mm-hmm.
And so knowing what ADHD looks like beyond like the stereotypical things that people talk about and that we see on TV, and like, and especially I feel like when we were kids, um whenever I heard about people with ADHD, it was people running around like crazy, right? It was the hyperactive
Mhm.
was always talked about as a hyperactive of the body. And now I know that like the hyperactive can be a hyperactivity of the body, but it's a hyperactivity of the mind. The fact that like your mind is always going in a million different directions. You're always thinking about so many things, and you don't have the ability to keep your thoughts organized and to hang on to the ones that you want and like to, you know, things like that. And so once you're aware of what all of the symptoms are, and then once you start to gain the awareness of, oh, yes, I identify with that one, and this is how it's impacting my life, like a lot of, I think, acceptance comes from that, which is really important. And so then once you have the awareness of what the symptoms are, how they're affecting your life, and like then you have the acceptance, like then you can start like honing in on individual things and like, okay, well, what can I do to work on this particular area? What is within my control? What am I capable of? Or am I just holding myself to neurotypical standards and
Mhm.
beating myself up for it? And so then, also just being aware of, being aware of what is and isn't possible.
Mhm.
So,
So interestingly enough, when it comes to awareness, my youngest was, oh, I want to say 5 when she told me in different words that she has ADHD.
mm,
And she had the awareness that something was disrupting her sleep. And she was able to tell me from the moment I wake up, there's a party in my brain, and I can't make the party stop when it's time to sleep. And
uh-huh.
that's the moment I knew, like, for 100% certain that she had ADHD. But she was aware that there was something going on. And I wouldn't have pegged a 5-year-old for being able to explain that, to have that awareness, to understand that there was something obstructing her sleep. And it totally took me by surprise because my kids have been amazing sleepers. All 3 of them have been great sleepers from like the very early on days. And so I never I never pictured her for having trouble sleeping, but she's
Mm.
like, there's a party in my brain all of the time, and I can't turn it off when it's time to go to sleep. And it's back on as soon as I wake up. And I was like, wow, okay, so this is awesome. But
Yeah, that's amazing.
and I imagine like if I had said that at 5, like my parents probably would have just been like, "Oh, you're an over imaginative, overactive
Yeah.
imagination.
Mhm.
That's all it is," and like brushed it off. But
Yeah.
because I have much more awareness about
Mhm.
neurodivergency, I mean, I have it myself. I have 2 partners that I live with that have ADHD as well. Like, there was just much more for me to pull from to be able to connect the dots and go, "Oh, okay, this is a thing that's now impacting her life," and she recognizes that it's impacting her life.
Mhm.
Still doesn't make it any easier to manage when you're talking to a 5-year-old, but
No, no. I think another important thing about awareness when it comes to ADHD that we talked about in our very first conversation about relationships and ADHD is like if you're in a relationship with somebody, or it could even be close friends, family, roommates, your boss, your manager, once you have the awareness about what symptoms impact you the most, having the conversation with those that you're close with and giving them that awareness as well,
mhm,
because that can be something else that's like so fucking hard is when the people around you don't understand. And so they by default have these expectations for you that you can't meet. And so like they can't adjust their expectations, and they can't help you and support you until they know and they're aware.
right. So I actually had that experience almost exactly in one of my partnerships. So, um, Jerry and I had been dating, I don't know, a couple years already,
Mhm.
and I had reached my limits with his lateness. And I don't remember if that time like we knew he had ADHD or suspected,
Uh-huh.
but we finally had to like sit down because we talked about it before, but it wasn't enough. There wasn't enough to make both of us feel content with the outcome. And I was like, look, I totally get the ADHD aspect and the time management aspect, and that's something you struggle with. That's not a part of my ADHD struggle as much. I
Mhm.
have time blindness sometimes when I get like hyper focused and stuff. But for the most part, I am hyper aware of what time it is and when I need to leave and
Mhm.
that sort of thing. That's my version.
You're on time for all of our meetings, and I'm always like, "I need 10 minutes." Like,
Right.
half the time.
Right. And so we had to like sit down and work it out. And I'm like, look, like I'm not holding this against you, but also I'm putting up boundaries because
Mhm.
I'm tired of wasting my time because you don't have your shit together. And like, because when you become aware that you have symptoms that are affecting other people, you do have the responsibility to do what you can to try and manage them and manage the impact they have on other people. So I'm not like a horribly callous person. I mean,
Mhm.
you know this,
Yeah.
but like, but also there are things you can do to get your shit together. And I do know that there's a stigma around using some of the tools and stuff. I hear that a lot. It's like, well, if I was any kind of adult, if I was worth it, I wouldn't need these. Like, and I'm like, they exist for a reason.
Right.
They
This
exist
stuff doesn't get created unless there's a need for it.
exactly. So I had to put some boundaries in place and some consequences, and um, it actually had the positive impact of helping keep him accountable with his timing and his scheduling. So what we came up with is because it was a 45-minute drive between our houses at the time. And I was like, if I am driving to you, I will give you 15 minutes. And if I have not heard from you, not that you have to be there, not that you have to show up, not that you have to be ready, but I need to have heard from you. There needs to be communication. Otherwise, I'm going to go home. If you are coming to my house, if I haven't heard from you within 15 minutes of our scheduled time, I am considering my day open because what was happening was we were making plans. He was showing up super late and I was missing out on other things because I was putting my day on hold. And I was
Yeah.
like, I can't do that to myself anymore. I deserve to respect my time much more. And so because of that accountability, we had one issue where I drove out there and turned around and went home, and it hasn't been an issue since. I have heard from him since, but it's because it's compassionate accountability. It's not,
Yeah.
what the fuck is wrong with you? Why can't you do this? Why can't you? Because when that doesn't help anybody. It makes everybody feel like crap. And it's like it doesn't cost anything to be compassionate, and you can be compassionate and stick to your boundaries at the
Mhm.
same time. They're not mutually
Yeah.
exclusive.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was my experience with that. It was like,
Yeah. And I think, that's also really true for things other than ADHD. Like, once you become aware, like, in relationships, like, we all have triggers from our past. And once you become aware of them, yes, it's really important for you to invite your partner into that conversation so they are aware of them also, but then it doesn't make it their responsibility to avoid doing the thing. It's, "Hey,
mhm,
this is my trigger, and so, like, I'm going to do my best to mitigate it from my end, recognize when I'm being triggered and, like, acknowledge it, and I want you to be aware in case I respond in some way," but that doesn't make it their responsibility to walk on eggshells around you to avoid all of your triggers.
oh yeah, that's a huge thing. Like I have all of the triggers. Like I could set up a trophy case of triggers because I collected them all. um, and I do my best to like try and tell people, because if you've been triggered about something enough times, you can usually anticipate what's going to happen once you've been
Mhm.
triggered. And so like I have shared with my partners, okay, if this is the thing that triggers me, this is most likely what's going to happen. And this is what triggers me, this is most likely going to happen. And here's what I do to try and mitigate it. And here's my success rate at being able to do that. So like I have some certain triggers that, trauma and ADHD combined results in explosive rage. But I'm really good now at containing it to become a response instead of a reaction. But that also means that I need to shut down and like not talk to anybody while I work through that first
Right.
hit of.
Right.
So if you're going, hey, what's wrong? What can I do? What do you need? And I'm like,
Mhm.
so like if you see rage across the face, you are not responsible for it. I'm handling it, but please don't make it worse.
Right, right. Let's all be aware of what's happening, and I'm gonna do my part, and your part is to leave me alone while I do my thing.
Yes, exactly. Yep. What do you think about like the wide scale awareness that seems to be happening?
Mm.
Like, how do you think that got started and like how we keep it going? Like, how do we keep or gain momentum? Gaining momentum would be better.
That is such an interesting question, like, how did it get started? I have no fucking idea, but I love it.
Right. Cause like so many of us have the same experience. Okay. So we'll
Mhm,
say out of the 3,000 people, we'll say since my teen years that I've talked to, probably close to 2,900 of them have a very similar experience
mhm,
to my experience of the way we were raised and the intergenerational trauma and the silencing and the invalidating, and so many people have the same experience, and yet now there's such a huge wave of people who are like, no, hold on, we can do this better.
yeah.
But
I
like,
wonder if a lot of it is, like, social media, like, people who have ADHD tend to be oversharers about things, right? And so here we are putting all of our, dirty laundry out on the internet, and we're like, here's what happened to me today. Here's what's going on with me. Um and then also like, blogs and media websites like Medium and stuff, like people started writing and sharing in a way that wasn't magazines and newspapers, right? Because for a long time, like, that was written media, right?
mm,
And so when it started becoming more personal and social media, started becoming bigger and bigger, and people had a way of sharing and connecting in a less personal, vulnerable way. Like, you're still being vulnerable by sharing yourself and putting it out there, but it's not like face to face eye contact type of thing.
mhm.
Um, I think that's when it became easier for people to share. And then people are, like, reading these stories or posts or whatever and being like, "Holy shit, that's me. What does this mean about me? Oh my god, I'm not alone."
And to expand on that, I was thinking when you were talking that like when you look at somebody's social media post, so not only are you relating to the post, but you're getting immediate feedback in the comment section
Mhm,
about other people going, holy shit, me too, I feel seen, I feel
mhm.
heard, it's not just me. So then you've gone from reading this article that maybe you relate to, but you don't have anybody around you to like validate it. And especially because we grew up with so much gaslighting. Like, do I really relate to this, or am I just convincing myself that I relate
Right.
to it? And so then all of a sudden you're flooded with people who are validating your experience and sharing their own. So then you've just off of one post, you've got your own micro community. And then it just kind of here and here and here and here and here.
And then
And
you've
then,
got the share button. And so you
yes.
always have the ability, like, now you get to keep it going. And so you had the chance to read, like, all of the initial post and all of the initial comments, and then you hit that share button. And then you have more feedback coming in from the people that can see what you shared.
And this is why I love social media. Like, I hear a lot, especially from like my family members, like, oh, social media is so terrible and like it's a dumpster fire. And like, yes, it can be, but like ever since I curated all of my social media, it is
Mhm.
the most amazing place in the entire fucking world.
It's
The
amazing to me. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, the amount of things that I learn and the connections that I find, like, hello, you.
I was just gonna say, hi, we met through social media.
Exactly. But I think that's an important element that people don't realize is that not only can you, but you need to curate your feed. Otherwise, you're gonna have dumpster fire after dumpster fire.
Yeah. I have a few people on my friends list. Okay, sometimes you have the people on your friends list that you're like, that is a dumpster fire, but I can't look away. Like, it's not my dumpster fire. Like, their dumpster is always fucking on fire, and I get to have a front row seat without having to be there. But there's a couple people that like will post, I've seen them post something, and then either like on that post, I get to see the comments that roll in, and I'm like, who are these people? How are you allowing them to be in your life? And this is social media. Block them, delete them. This
Mhm.
isn't real life. Like, I get it if it's like your uncle and it's a super complicated situation and totally cutting them out of your life. Like, that can be really hard, but like social media. And then I also see the people who will say, oh, I commented about this thing or I posted about this thing, or like I'm getting all of this feedback from people, or I'm getting these private messages. I posted this thing last week and now I'm getting these private messages from people. And I'm like, who are these people? Why are you letting them be in your space?
Mhm. And that comes from the people pleasing and the being taught that, like, if we have boundaries, we're selfish.
Yes.
Like, you should allow people to have whatever access to you anytime you want, 24/7, 365. And if you don't, you're a horrible, terrible human. And I think part of the reason that is because if the people who, and for a lot of us, this was our caregivers, the people who are exploiting your not having boundaries, they no longer get what they want when they teach you how to have boundaries. So
Mhm.
it behooves them to just
Yeah.
like make you feel bad for any kind of boundaries whatsoever.
Mhm.
Because if you learn one boundary and then you start thinking, where else can I apply this? Then you might cut off their supply to whatever they're gaining from you.
Yeah. And like boundaries are hard to learn and implement.
Well, yes. And especially when you factor in that along with that, you get taught that other people's feelings matter more than yours.
Right. I was actually having this conversation with my boyfriend yesterday. He was sharing with me a conversation that he had, and I was like, can I share with you how I might have done it differently? I was like, I would have said this without like any kind of threat afterwards, but like, here's like the clear boundary.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, yeah, that would have been good. But like, I'm still learning how to set boundaries with people, especially people that I care about. It's easier. The more you care about somebody, the harder it is to set a boundary with them. Like,
Mm-hmm.
the longer they've been in your life. I have found that like my new friends, like it's so much easier to like set the standard early on in the friendship, and like set the precedent of like, this is how it's going to be. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I communicate very directly and succinctly. I set boundaries, like this is what I will and will not tolerate, and like I'm going to ask for what I want and advocate for my needs and like all the things. And then like that's just how it is, versus like, oh, we've already been friends for 15 years
Mm-hmm.
and you've known me like this,
Were
and now
you
I'm changing and growing.
were you listening to the series of TikToks I was making earlier? Because it was basically all along those lines.
I wasn't.
Yep, it was all about autonomy and boundaries and communication when you're forming new connections. So I just thought that
Oh,
was
that's
hilarious.
great.
But I mean, that's not the first time you and I have done that.
Right,
Like,
right.
not
Yes.
hardly. And I really like So when you form new connections with people, I'm going off on my TikTok tangent and we're just going to go with it. So when you form new connections with people, like boundaries teach you how teach people how to interact with you, but communication does the same thing. And that's why I front load my communication style at the beginning. Like, I will ask you directly for what I want. I will tell you directly what I need. I will do this. And so, like, you can attest to this because we've only been friends for like a year and a half, 2 years. But like at the beginning, that's how it was. And that's how we both got into talking about coaching was because I'm like, this is how I do things. And, you know, I will send you messages and you don't have to worry about when you get back to me. If I need you to get back to me within a certain amount of time, I will tell you that. If I'm going to ask you for something, I will front load all of that information for you. Like all of these things. And so we've created this not just safety and communication, but this ease. Like you and I don't have to go back and forth forever anymore because we did all of that at the beginning and establish how our communication is going to work. And we asked a lot of inquisitive questions. Okay, if I say this, how does that feel to you? How do you want to respond to that? Like, what does this interpret? And so, yeah, we had a lot of conversations like that in the beginning, but we don't need to do them anymore.
Right.
So that's my tangent. That's apparently where I am today.
Yeah.
I mean, awareness helps with all that, so it still fits within.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, awareness. That's where we started, and now we're on boundaries and communication because it's all tied together.
The braid analogy. I gave you that analogy really early on. Like when we were first, you were coaching me through some business stuff. I was like, this is how I see it. It's a braid. You need a little bit of everything to get your finished product.
Yeah.
Can't have one without the other. Terrible show.
Yes, now we're both singing the rest of the song.
I wonder if I could make like a version of that, like along my coaching lines. That could be her thing.
It's about like boundaries and communication.
No, but like us, you can't have one without the other.
Oh,
because we all know you can, but also,
yeah,
we're better together in a lot of ways.
Together. Mm-hmm. Gosh, what would it be like? Now I'm off on like a far off brain tangent. I'm like, what would it be like if we were like a coaching team and like we had a client, or what if we had a group together?
It'd be fucking amazing. That's what it'd be
like.
It
would be fucking amazing.
Like, seriously. Well, and we had talked about doing that thing with Heather too. The trifecta. When she gets up and running again, we can totally do that. Oh. Sidebar. I hope Voxer starts working soon because I sent you an amazing message.
Okay. So nobody listening cares about this. I think it was the issue with my phone. And so I restarted my phone. So it's probably going to be working. But also I listened to your one last night about the idea about the TV show and the podcast thing. And I love your ideas. They're so fun to listen to. I know.
Don't want anybody stealing my ideas. I want to be original for once.
Okay. So for people who get overwhelmed watching and listening to long things, we are at the 30-minute mark.
We are. Okay, cool.
So is there anything else that you feel like is relevant or important to touch on with regard to?
So actually, yes, something you said earlier, like bringing it to somebody else's awareness. That's a hard conversation to have. To say, hey, by the way, there's this thing that you do or how you interact with the world or whatever, and this is the way it impacts me. And then when you throw on the people pleasing and the everybody else's feelings are more important than yours and you're not supposed to have boundaries, that gets to be like a really scary conversation.
Yeah. And to bring somebody else's awareness, like even if it's just something as simple as like, hey, you said this thing and I know your intention was not malicious, but I also want you to know how it impacted me so that way it doesn't happen again.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're bringing something to somebody's awareness so that way things are better moving forward, and it's still so fucking hard. It starts out really fucking hard.
Right. Like,
Once you practice it, it's really easy. But like it also takes a lot of practice. Not only are you practicing bringing it, but like it takes the other person to be on the receiving end of that, and to receive it well takes practice also.
yes, absolutely. Chris and I were having this conversation the other day about how, I mean, even now we still need to practice because his commitment to personal growth exists, but it is not as high on his list of priorities as it is on mine.
Mm-hmm.
So there are times where I still feel like I'm trying to like, come on, get up here with me. So we like we can work on this faster together, more, whatever. Um, and that's also part of awareness too, is like, where is your person at? Like, where are they at? How committed to this are they? Like, maybe you can, well, you can ask them that directly. They may not be able to answer it, but like, what do you observe? What do you see? And it's not that I doubt that he wants to do things the right way. It's not that I doubt that he cares about the impact to me. It's just he's got his own version of ADHD. And also, he's his own human with his own experiences. And also, he just might not be there yet. And so that awareness also helps. So, somebody else who's more on the same level that I am, I might get more frustrated more easily than having that awareness that he's just not there yet and it requires more time and patience. I forget where I started with that, but that's where we're ending on that.
Okay. I also forget where we started with that.
And ladies and gentlemen, this is our show. Not ladies and gentlemen. Humans, folks, people.
What's a, there's a way. There's a way to say
There
that.
there are but that's
I'm gonna Google it real quick while we're here, real time.
That's like one of the ones that has been the hardest for me to get rid of. Okay,
friends and enemies, humans and non-humans. Y'all.
I say y'all.
Distinguished guest. I like that. You are all our distinguished guests.
Yeah. I also like go off your eminent. That's like my favorite from that list.
I'm clicking on another one. Assembled guests. Gentle beings.
Ooh.
My dears.
I like humans. Humans. Like when I first started, that was like my opener for like TikTok was hello humans. But then I kept forgetting to do it, so
yeah.
It is what it is.
I live with my best friend and her kids, and when her youngest was 3, she said humans all the time. She said it. No, she and my daughter both. It was so funny. Like when my daughter would be like, instead of how many people are going to be at the party, how many humans are going to be at the party, Mom? She used it in such a funny way. Like instead of saying people, she said humans, but she pronounced it right. And then my friend's daughter said humans.
She's
like
ahead
in
of her
imaginary
time.
play. All the humans are going to the grocery store. I love kids.
Yes, they are.
Oh, except in the moments when I don't.
I was thinking, our middle child, we had it took us like 6 months to figure this out, but they started adding K's to everything. And so when you were talking about the mispronunciation, so tools became mouse-ka-tools, and like police became caplice, and helicopter became hockalopter, and like all of these things. And we couldn't figure it out. But then one day I was reading them the Halloween book from Mickey's Playhouse.
Okay.
And I was thinking Mouseketeers because Mouse-ka-tools, Mouseketeers.
That's funny. All right.
I like Casey Davis, Sentient Balls of Stardust.
Mm.
I like that one.
Sentient. I like that too. I'll never like remember it to say
Yeah.
it, but I like to hear it. It
Yeah,
sounds nice.
it's so soothing.
Yep.
So, alrighty. I think
Alright. Well, thanks for joining us, y'all.
I know. Y'all come back now.
Nice to check ins.
Alrighty. I'll talk to you later.
Okay, bye.
Bye.